Now, the Frontier has not always been the most loved truck of all time. In fact, it typically lags behind its competitors such as the Ford Ranger and the Toyota Tacoma quite often. But I think with this new generation, it's safe to say that Nissan's made some well-needed improvements. And today, I'm going to be telling you 5 things I love about this new generation of the Nissan Frontier. I'm Aiden, and you're watching God Next. Now, it's also no secret that the Frontier was not the prettiest truck when it came to its last generation, especially compared to its competitors. Ford, Toyota, Chevy, everyone who was making a mid-size pickup truck was definitely making something that looked quite a lot better. But with this new Frontier, I think it actually looks pretty good. This one is the SV, which is towards the bottom of the trim levels, but at least you get these sleeker looking headlights, though still blocky, and these ones don't seem to be LED. You have a new whole front fascia than you did from last generation. It's a lot more proportionate to its actual size versus before the headlights were abnormally large and the grille was like this weird tilted back looking thing. It wasn't a good look for the Frontier, but now Nissan has done quite a bit to make this thing not look like absolute dog water. The rear is also a lot better looking than the last generation used to be, and overall I think it's a really good looking truck. You get these cool looking graphics packages on it too, depending on the accessories that you get, though they are dust magnets. So overall, I think the new styling of the Frontier is much better than before. Now, even though you are locked into one engine option on the Frontier as opposed to something like the Ranger, this isn't terrible. This is a naturally aspirated 3.8 liter V6, so a higher displacement than you would see normally from a forced induction mid-sized truck engine. But yeah, this makes 310 horsepower and 281 pound-feet of torque. Now, I know that torque figure does sound a little low, especially compared to its competitors, but you also have to remember this is naturally aspirated, which typically in that situation your horsepower is going to be higher than your torque figure, and which I'll get into this later, your towing figure actually isn't that low compared to some of its competitors. So yeah, I think the motor is pretty good, naturally aspirated. You get a lot of that that linear power curve over something like forced induction. So worse torque, not so bad horsepower. Now, the next thing before we head to the back and talk about some of its towing capabilities, I want to talk about the price range of this truck. It's actually not horrible, and it puts it at one of the least priced mid-size pickup trucks in the entire range of all of its competitors. Now, the Frontier alone starts at around $30,000 if you're going to do their King cab, which is just a fancy way of saying cheap cab. That one starts at $30,000 with rear wheel drive. Now, this one, because this is the SV with the 4 doors and everything like that, this one starts at $34,000. This is the rear wheel drive model of course, but if you get the the 4-wheel drive, it is going to be a little more expensive than this one is. But yeah, you could pick this up for around $34,000, which is considerably cheaper by around $2 grand than the closest competitive Ranger, which is going to be the XLT with rear-wheel drive and this cab. So yeah, it's not a horrible price, and it comes in lower than some of its competitors. So what can you say to saving a little extra money? Now, let's talk about towing for the Nissan Frontier. It is lower than some of its competitors, especially the Ranger, which does manage to tow more. That's partially due to its torque figure and the way the Ranger is built, but still, let's talk about the towing of the Nissan Frontier. If you don't get any additional accessories or packages on the Frontier, can tow 6,260 pounds, which is pretty low. It's not extremely low. It's definitely higher than the last generation of Frontier, but it's not quite up there with some of its competitors. But if you get the towing accessories and everything like that, this thing can tow up to almost 7,000 pounds. It's going to be 6,720 to be exact, which is quite healthy, and like I said, cheaper than most of its competitors. Actually, I think all of its competitors in this trim level. So 6,720 pounds is not nothing by any stretch of the imagination. It's still pretty good. Also, of course, down here is where you have all of your power connectors. You have a 7-pin power connector for your trailer that you can hook up. So yeah, towing numbers and towing wise, it's still pretty good. Now, the second and last thing I want to talk about is going to be the bed accessories that you can get in the back of the Frontier. You can buy an accessories package for the SV trim level and get quite a lot of quality of life things when it comes to the practicality of using this truck. That includes the 120 volt outlet that you have in the bed, which is really useful if you're going camping and you need to power something. You can also get a tent accessory for the bed of this truck too, which is also pretty nice and makes that 120 volt outlet even more useful. But yeah, that's a nice quality of life feature. You also have these bed rails that extend the entire thing for installing additional accessories to your Frontier, just in case, you know, let's say you're constantly on the move and you are someone who needs to have a toolbox back here that's pretty large that comes in and out. Well, guess what? The rails in the back of the Frontier can definitely help you out with that one. So yeah, good on Nissan for adding a bunch of other things. So those are going to be the 5 things I like about the new generation of the Nissan Frontier. I don't say love because I don't love this truck. I think Nissan still needs to do a lot of work to make this actually competitive, because though it does come in towards the cheap end of the spectrum when it comes to its competitors, it still misses out on a lot of quality of life and technology things that the newer versions do have. Now, for 2025, Nissan has released a mid-life cycle refresh for this generation, which is nice. The interior has a little more nicer technology and everything like that. And considering this is a 22, which is the first generation of the refresh, you know, it was just par for the course that it was going to need a little extra work. So those are the 5 things I like about this new generation of the Nissan Frontier. If you guys liked the video, make sure to hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more from us, make sure you subscribe. I'll see you all in the next video.